University in Israel. My advisor is Professor Shay Geller. I'm really excited to talk to you about my thesis work in detecting confusion in course forums. This is a joint collaboration with my wonderful colleagues from the University of Edinburgh, MIT, and UC Davis. So today I'm going to talk about a new method we developed to identify students' confusion as it is conveyed in online discussion forums. The method uses student self-reported hashtags for that matter. We all notice the rise of online learning environments like the MOOC websites. But let us not forget that traditional classes also incorporates more and more online resources like online student forums, Moodle, online quizzes, Kahoot, etc. E-learning was a big thing even before these weird days. But with the coronavirus around us and the forced social distance, we all feel this huge trigger that stimulates the transition of learning with online tools. During learning in traditional classes or in online classes, students experience a rich diverse of emotions, from enjoyment of learning and pride of success, to frustration over course material and test-related anxiety. We will show that confusion can be conveyed in online course forums through self-reported hashtags that students add to their posts, similar to the way they discuss in other social networks like Twitter or Instagram. Persistent confusion is known to be a barrier for learning, that if not resolved on time, can lead to loss of motivation, frustration, and to disengagement with course material. An automated tool for detecting confusion can help teachers to identify students at risk of persistent confusion or signaling them for confusing parts of the reading material. For students, it can help alleviate their confusion until they manage to resolve it by themselves. Now, we will discuss about who is most eligible for identified students' confused posts. The first candidate is, of course, the students themselves. Students can signal when they are confused. However, sometimes a student can confidently state something that is absolutely wrong without knowing it. So they will not exhibit any sort of help-seeking behavior. A course staff can easily identify these cases. Other works use crowdsourcing labelers like Mechanical Turks to label students' posts in online discussions. However, these external observers has two drawbacks. One, they do not always have enough expert knowledge to identify wrong statements. Two, they usually can't distinguish between confusion and curiosity. And I will give an example. Students sometimes ask questions that are out of the scope of the material presented in class. For a person not familiar with course material, this can be seen as the student is being confused, because confusion is usually conveyed through questions. However, a course staff will easily identify that the question is off scope and understand that the student is actually being curious. Therefore, we conclude that the course staff are most qualified to label confused posts in online discussion, sometimes even more than students themselves. This led us to the following research questions. 1. Do students' hashtags agree with teacher judgment about what constitutes confused posts? 2. Can we automatically detect confusion when there are no hashtags, as happens in most forums? This second question will let us know if we can augment existing forum posts, one without hashtags, for the task of confusion detection. To answer this question, we use the following data. This is the user interface from Nota Bene platform. Nota Bene is an online annotation tool and a discussion forum that was developed in MIT. It is used by thousands of students in hundreds of courses worldwide. The course staff can upload PDFs with reading material, and the students can mark portion of the text and start a discussion directly on it. In the left, you can see the reading material, and the highlighted yellow color represents portion of the text that the students discussing on. The top right is all the discussion threads, and the bottom right is the discussion itself. Our data comes from a general biology course from UC Davis. It is a big course with more than 700 students per semester. This course is required for all life science majors, many social sciences majors, and bioengineering students. Therefore, students with such diverse background produce a wide range of diverse discussions. If you look carefully, this lecture contains around 1,700 discussions, and it's only one lecture out of 25. You can imagine how much effort it is to go over all these discussions over all the lectures. An automatic tool that identifies specific posts of interest, in our case, confused posts, will save a lot of time for the course staff. Another unique feature of Nota Bene is a set of 8 predefined hashtags that students can use to signal their affective states. As you can see in the photo, students can click on the specific emoji and the corresponding hashtags will appear as part of the post. The hashtags are #confused, #curious, interested, idea, help, question, useful, and frustrated. In this table, you can see the counts for each of the hashtags over all posts in the semester. We can see that some hashtags are more popular than others. These hashtags help students to convey their affective states in a similar way they do in other social networks. And also, Nota Bene allows both students and instructors to filter posts by hashtags, helping them to navigate to specific posts of interest. Out of 60,000 posts generated in the course, 40,000, which is 2/3 of all posts, contains at least one hashtag. This means that students perceive intrinsic value in the course from using hashtags. This is a histogram of the number of hashtags used at least once by students across all the lectures. For example, a student that used only 5 distinct hashtags over the entire semester will be part of the 5 column. As shown in the figure, the majority of students made use of 4 or more hashtags. Only a small minority of students did not include any hashtags in their posts, 19 cases, or used all of the hashtags, it is 17 cases. This shows that students use the hashtags in a diverse way. Prior work applied machine learning model for confusion detection in different learning environments. A work by Lee et al. On offline programming environments. Other works detected confusion in MOOC discussion forums. Some works when data was labeled using crowdsourcing labelers like Mechanical Turks, and other works over dataset that was labeled by experts, meaning the core staff. Our main difference over these works is that we use the students' self-reported hashtags as a proxy for their confusion. This omits the needs for outsourcing the confusion labels and help us to obtain a fast and cheap label dataset. The most similar work to our work is by Zhang et al. That uses machine learning classifier to distinguish between confused and curious posts through their matching hashtags, #confused and #curious. A major difference in our work is that we tested whether the hashtags used by the students match course staff judgment. Also, we showed that we can use these hashtags labels to train a classifier that can predict over posts without hashtags at all. So let's go back to our first research question. Do students' hashtags agree with teacher judgment about what constitutes confused posts? To answer this question, we first need to find a way to label students' posts using their hashtags. The most named labeling rule is if a post contains the confused hashtags, it will be labeled as confused post. Otherwise, if it contains any of the other hashtags, it will be labeled as non-confused post. In this experiment, we will ignore posts without hashtags. We will address them separately in the next research question. See, for example, this confused post. Here, the students ask a question about the reading material and ends his post with the hashtags confused. However, it is the case that some confused posts do not include the confused hashtags. For example, consider the following post. The student actually says, "I'm a little bit confused," then explains what he is confused with, and then ends his post with, "How do we distinguish atoms and elements? #question." This student is reflecting confusion about the reading, but is not using the confused hashtag. Instead, he uses the question hashtags because his post ends with a question. It is reasonable pick of hashtags, and we saw many posts like this. This led us to believe that the confused hashtag is sufficient, but not a necessary condition for inferring confusion in students' posts. So, we understood that there are some other hashtags that students use to signal confusion. To find the most similar hashtags to the confused hashtag, we learn an embedding vector for each hashtag. For more details about how we exactly did it, you can refer to the paper or ask me after the talk. Then, we calculated the cosine similarity between the confused hashtags and all other hashtags. And this is what you can see in the table. The closer the number to 1, the more similar the hashtag to the confused hashtag. So, this led us to believe that the help and question hashtags are more similar to the confused hashtag. So we came up with the second labeling rule, R2. This rule states that if a post contains one of the hashtag confused, hashtag help, or hashtag questions, and no other additional hashtags, it will be labeled as confused post, and otherwise it will be labeled as non-confused post. We'll denote the labeling rules as R1 and R2 in the rest of the talk. You can see that the R1 is a subset of R2, because R2 contains the confused hashtag. So any post that will be labeled as confused by R1 will also be labeled as confused by R2. To test the research question 1, whether students' hashtags match teacher judgment of confusion, we randomly picked 150 posts as follows. 50 posts from R1 group, meaning posts with the confused hashtag. 50 posts from R2 minus R1 group, meaning posts with the help or question hashtags and no other hashtags. This is to check if the addition of these hashtags adds some value to R2 rule. And another 50 posts with the remaining hashtags. This is the control group of posts that should be labeled as non-confused by both rules. We gave a member of the course staff to label these posts, with the hashtags omitted from the text, of course. The posts were presented in a random order to the expert. For each post, the expert was asked, to what extent does the following post exhibit the student's confusion on the relevant reading material? We used a 4-point Likert scale, when 1 being non-confusion and 4 being very confused. Any label with 2 or higher, we registered as confused post. So results. In the figure, the orange color represents the portion of the text. In the figure, the orange color represents the portion of the text of the post that expert labeled as confused. For example, out of the 50 posts in the R1 group, the expert labeled 43 posts as confused posts. I want to remind you that the middle and the leftmost columns together are actually the confusion labels of R2 rules. It is important to note that 34 posts labeled correctly as confused under R2 rule would have been missed by R1 rule. Also, from the figure, we can conclude that 1. There is a significant more agreement between expert and the post in R1 and R2 minus R1 groups than the post in the control group. 2. There are more agreement between expert and post in R1 group than in R2 minus R1 group, but this difference was not significant. This results confirms our hypothesis that while R1 may be most important indication for confused posts, it is incomplete, and adding post that satisfies R2 rule will improve the detection of confusion in this dataset. Thus, we have answered research question 1. Yes, we can find the mapping from student self-reported hashtags that agrees with teacher judgment about confused posts. These results led us to ask the second research question. Can we use students' hashtags to inform automatic classification of confused posts for situations in which hashtags do not exist? The methodology is very simple. The training dataset will be labeled using hashtags, and the test dataset, which composed of posts that never had any hashtags in the first place, will be labeled by human expert. I want to emphasize this part. This is not a traditional machine learning classification experiment. In our case, the training and the testing dataset are labeled in different ways. Few slides before, I presented two labeling rules using hashtags R1 and R2, and I showed that R2 agrees more with the human expert labels. However, we don't know which one of these labeling rules will be better to train a machine learning model that will be good enough to predict on expert labels. Therefore, we trained two classifiers, one when the training data was labeled using R1 rule, and another when, again, the training data were labeled using R2 rule. Notice, the test dataset for these two classifiers remained the same, and it is the expert labels on posts originally without hashtags. So what we have here? We have two machine learning models that were trained on posts with hashtags. One model where the labeling rule was R1, and another model where the labeling rule was R2. Both classifiers are the same, logistic regression plus L1 regularization. Both classifiers used also the same features, which are word-level bigrams with TF-IDF normalization. We experiment with multiple domain-specific features and models that related work presented, but this is what worked best for us. Keeping it simple worked the best for us. I will now present the results of these two classifiers on the test set, which is 200 posts that never had hashtags and were labeled by an expert. In the figure, you can see classification results of the two models, denoted as R1 and R2. Just to keep in mind that the testing data, which is expert labeled, is in balance, with 4 times more non-confused posts than confused posts. We can see that classifier trained using R2 rule is much better in every metric, especially in the recall, probably due to the inclusion of more confusion cases that were not conveyed with the confused hashtag. This answered the second research questions. Yes, we can use students' hashtags to train a machine learning model to predict over posts without hashtags. So for a summary, we found a mapping from hashtags to expert judgment of confusion. This is the first work that used student self-reported hashtags to train a machine learning model that can predict confusion on posts without hashtags at all. This can help us to augment existing students' discussion forums that usually do not have hashtags. For future work, we want to test the agreement between multiple human experts. Also, we want to improve our classification results. And we want to test our classifier on posts from other semesters. In the short time remained, I want to present to you a follow-up work we did on the first point, the agreement between experts. This is part of a current paper we are working on. This is not part of the current paper, but it dives into the real complexity of confusion detection by experts. Testing the disagreement cases between multiple experts that label the same post using our current method, we understood that we need to deal with more fine-grained cases of confusion. For example, explicitly decide how to label incorrect student statements. 2, help experts to separate between confused and curious posts. So we came up with a labeling tree that experts can use to label posts for confusion. The presented labeling tree composed of a series of questions to be answered by the labeler, which directs them to label whether a post is expressing confusion or not. The leaves of the tree contains the labels. For example, the first question to the labeler, does this post express any confusion or curiosity? If the answer is no, it will lead him to the NC label, which is no confusion. If the answer is yes, then he will have to state, does the post expresses confusion or curiosity about? If it's about the cross logistics, like a post that says something like, do we need it for the exam? It will be labeled as L. Otherwise, it will be usually related to course content. And then it leads the labeler to the question, does the question in the post goes beyond the course learning goals? If the answer is yes, it will lead into the CU, the curious label. Otherwise, it will lead into another question. Which of the following does the post convey? And these are 4 types of confusion we had identified in our discussions. For example, The student is stating something that is incorrect, but they seem to think it is correct. And then it will be labeled with the CF2 label. This tree incorporates many aspects of confusion while achieving high agreement levels between raters. This is an important point. This tree is not meant to be a complete visual description of confusion definition, but rather to caption enough of the ambiguous interpretation of confusion in order to create consistent labels among experts. To evaluate the tree, we picked 300 new posts without hashtags from multiple lectures of the course and gave the same post to 3 course staff members to label using the new tree. They achieved 0.86 intra-class correlation on the lifts labels, which is high in acceptable levels. We are currently revisiting our research question results with these new consistent labels. Due to time constraints, I will not go into these details now. Even though we presented the progress in automatically detecting confusion in discussion forums, there are still many challenges hidden in such data. 1, we are testing our results on more instantiations of the BIS2A course, training on one semester and predicting on another. 2, we would like to detect more types of emotion in students' posts using their hashtags. And finally, we want to find the right way to use these detected emotions to improve learning, whether by helping specific students at risk or by improving the reading material by providing teachers with a heat map of confusion. That's all. I have a great honor to be part of this great AI lab at Ben-Gurion University. I'm not part of this photo, probably because I worked hard on the paper when this photo was taken. So here is my mobile virtual present device version. Thank you all for listening. Hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.